Hey guys, welcome back. Working on the Chevy Biscayne again, and we are working on the drive shaft today. So we have the engine in, the transmission in. I still haven't tightened up all the mounts because I just don't know if anything's going to change. So everything's just kind of loose in here. And what I've done is I've got the drive shaft hooked up to the rear end loosely, and I actually have it laying underneath the X-frame because it's too long to fit in the X-frame. It actually hits the transmission up here. So there is the tail shaft of the transmission. I'm guessing we're, well, as we can see here, I guess we don't have to guess. Oh, it's just falling around. The old transmission output was quite a bit further forward. So not only do we have to adapt this drive shaft to this yoke, we need to shorten it quite a bit. Now, I'm not going to do this myself. I'm going to take measurements and I'm going to send it to the driveline shop. They can shorten it, they can balance it, plus I'm going to have some other stuff done to this. I'm not sure what Chevy was thinking on this one, but this is set up different than most other vehicles I've seen. So, carrier bearing, because it goes through the X-frame, you can't have the pivot point all the way up there, because as soon as the rear end moves, it'll hit the frame here. You just don't get the travel. So they put a carrier bearing kind of in the middle of this X-frame. They have a slip yoke at the front. Slip yoke at the front isn't that big of a deal because the transmission's not going to move much on the mount. And we're going to here. So why did they put the slip yoke on the front and the carrier bearing right here, and then there's no slip yoke on the back half of the shaft? It doesn't make a lot of sense because the rear end has to move up and down. As that rear end moves up and down, this shaft is going to pivot forward and back slightly. Now, it's not a lot, but all of that movement is taken up by the carrier bearing. And this one, the rubber's pretty cracked out on it. But all of that force pushes this forward and back all the time. So by adding a slip yoke into this rear shaft, it's going to take up the movement whenever this rear end moves up and down. It's going to save a lot of strain on the carrier bearing because with that urethane carrier bearing, we're not going to have as much in and out movement. And then this won't move hardly at all, which I guess would be this yoke up here. But that's okay. We still have a little bit of room for adjustability. Now, the other thing I noticed is this yoke hits the arm for the e-brake here, but we move around, that arm is bent up. They probably hit something in the past. So I'll have to pull this arm out and straighten it out. I'll probably go further than I need to just to drop that down and get it out of the way. So I'm going to order that urethane carrier bearing. I think that's what I want to go with. The rubber, I don't know if it'll hold up to the extra torque of this motor. And then I'll take what I think the drive shaft measurements should be, but I'm also going to take measurements from the end of the transmission flange or the output shaft to where the carrier bearing bolts up, and then from there all the way to the rear end. And then the drive shaft shop can, they're the experts. They can adjust it to what they think it should be as well. And then we'll get it in there, test fit it, make sure everything's good to go. And they also have the setup to balance it, so we should be good, no vibrations, whatnot there. So it'll probably be a couple weeks before I get the drive shaft back from the drive shaft shop because we'll have to order the carrier bearing in. They may have to order that rear slip yoke depending on dimensions if they have one in stock. Build the whole thing, balance it, get it back to us so we can test fit it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.